Hey, my awesome photo class. I miss you very much. Sorry that I'm missing you 2 days in a row. I have a meeting at the CTE office, and we get a lot of really cool stuff from CTE, so I have to go to those meetings. So we're going to talk about the camera today. I want you guys to find this part of your packet. It's the end of the packet, so we're going to actually be moving on to bigger and better things like actually using the camera, taking pictures, and developing them and doing all that cool stuff. So what it says is practice changing the settings of the camera. While practicing, be sure to remain seated and working over top of a table so you don't drop the camera, break the lens, any of that kind of stuff. You will try these things with the back of your camera open, but be careful, the shutter is very fragile. As we discussed before, you don't want to touch the shutter. These adjustments should be smooth and easy, so if you're having difficulty, ask for help. Ms. Madsen's really great with the camera, and she knows all this stuff, so she'll be able to see if there's something going on. Don't force the camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the back of the camera, and we are going to set the camera to bulb. We did this in class the other day briefly, but I want you to really take the time to check this out. So I set the camera to bulb on my shutter speeds there, okay? And then I have to press the shutter button. What happens, okay? So I want you to do that. Go ahead and pause the videotape. Write down what you see with the shutter. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna have to advance what would be my film advance lever. I'm gonna press that again, and then I'm gonna see what happens when I change the aperture size. So I'm gonna look through the back of my camera, and I'm not looking through it, I'm pointing it at the camera on the computer, but you can see that the aperture is changing. All right, mine's a little delayed. Okay. All right, so rotate the aperture. What do you see? Write that down. Go ahead and pause the video again. Okay, next, what does f16 look like? So turn your aperture to f16. You still have bulb open. You're gonna take an image. So what does f16 look like when you look through your aperture? Okay, pause the video, write that down. So now I'm looking at 1.8. So take a picture. I'm looking through my shutter. I'm looking at the aperture. What does it look like? Okay, write that down. What do you see? How much light does it let in compared to other things, the other stops? Okay, pause the video. Now we're going to set our shutter to 1/1000. So I'm setting my shutter here. Okay, and I'm going to press the shutter release and write down what happens. What do I see happening to my shutter when that's set at 1/1000? Go ahead and pause the video and write that down. Then I'm setting my shutter to 1. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take an image. What happens? What happens to the shutter when it's set at 1? Okay, write that down. Go ahead and pause the video. Lastly, try some other shutter speeds and apertures. Get to know what they do and the changes what changes in the camera as you adjust those settings. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and take about 2 minutes to play around with that. Make sure you're sharing your camera with your partner, because I know we have only a couple cameras per table, so there should be like 2 to 3 people per camera. Next page, we're going to close the back of our camera. We're going to look at our light meter. Okay, so when I look through the camera, I can see my light meter. Some of you guys have a light meter. It's on the very side of the frame. So if this is the frame, your light meter is this little needle that goes up or down like this. Other people you have to press your shutter halfway down, and you have a light that goes on. It's either a red minus, a red plus, or a green circle. And it might be a red circle too. Some people have red circles. But when it's a red plus, it's saying it's overexposed. When it's a minus, red minus, it's saying it's underexposed. And when it's a circle, it's saying it's perfect exposure. Same with the lever. If it's up like this, that's overexposed. If it's down like that, it's underexposed. If it's right in the middle, it's perfect exposure. So we're going to look at these. It says, we're now going to look at your light meter. Notice your light meter, it appears on the side of your viewfinder as a red plus or minus or green circle when you press the shutter halfway down. Or it is a lever in the side of your viewfinder. Which light meter do you have? So figure that out right now and go ahead and press pause while you do that. Okay, so next we're going to set our camera to aperture f16, and we're going to set our shutter to 1/1000. Okay, so I'm doing that right now. Now I'm going to look at my light meter. I'm looking through. What does my light meter say? Okay, I don't know what your light meter says. I have a pretty good guess. Are you under or overexposed? I want you to explain why that is. Okay, you have to understand what size this aperture is and how much time 1/1000th is. Okay, as far as that relates to the light that's getting to your film. Okay, so what happens? Are we under or overexposed? What does the light meter tell you? And why do you think that is true? Because of what you know about the size, aperture, and the amount of time. Okay, pause the video and go ahead and check that out. All right, next we are going to, I'm reading this right off of the sheet. What does your light meter read when you change the shutter to 1/15 of a second and your aperture to 1.8? Okay, so I'm taking this to 1/15 on my shutter. Okay, I'm taking my aperture down to 1.7 because mine doesn't go to 1.8, it goes to 1.7. I would never shoot at 1/15th, by the way, unless I had a tripod. We should always be at 1/60th or faster. But just for this exercise, I'm going to look in and see what does my light meter say. Okay, so my light meter is either going to tell me that I'm under or overexposed at this point. So what does it tell you? Are you under or overexposed? And then why? What do you know about 1/15th of a second and 1.7 or 1.8 aperture? What do you know about those two things? How much light do they let in? Okay, pause the video, write that down. Okay, so now we're going to actually use our light meter to take a good exposure. So I'm going to point my camera at the light. I have my shutter set at 1/60th, and now I'm going to rotate my aperture to get my needle to sit in the middle. Okay, what do I get? What is the f-stop that I get that says this is the right exposure? When you point your camera at the light, this is the right exposure. Your needle's in the middle or your circle is green. Okay, try that, write that down. Compare answers too. Pause the video. Okay, now we're going to point our camera at another person. I'm going to use my coffee cup because I'm alone right now. Sad. All right, I'm going to set my aperture at 1/60th, and then, or sorry, my shutter speed is at 1/60th, and then I'm going to rotate my aperture until I get a very happy light meter. Okay, what do I get? I get an aperture that is letting in a lot more light than what I did before when I was pointing the camera at the light. I'm not going to tell you what mine is because you're going to write down what you have. Write that down now and go ahead and pause the video. Okay, lastly, you're going to try to make your light meter happy by pointing it at different subjects. Why is it important to know that when you point your camera at, I'm pointing it at a door right now, you know, this door is giving off a different amount of light than if I point it to an actual light. If I point it towards a window, if I point it towards the floor, if I'm taking a picture of somebody's shoes, all these things are giving off different amounts of light. I want you to try pointing your camera at different things and making your light meter happy. It either turns green, it's a green circle, or your lever's in the middle. okay? Just leave your shutter at 1/60th and just move your aperture ring and make your light meter happy that way. Then tell me, why is this really important to know how to do, okay? Write that down in your packet, and this is the last of the video, so you can go ahead and stop it now.